Good afternoon, Year 6, and welcome to our first topic lesson of this half term. We are going to be looking at Darwin's Voyage of Discovery in more detail. We had a look at it when we created our biography about Charles Darwin, but now we're going to look at the voyage in more detail. But before we start this lesson, you will need a piece of paper and a tea bag, a damp tea bag. And what you need to do to your two pieces of paper, because we're going to create a map later on, or maybe next lesson, I don't know, is tear around the edge of your pieces of paper. It is better if you do tear around the edges of your pieces of paper. It's better if you kind of do them separately, but I'm just saying, it doesn't matter how they look. So tear around the edges of your sheet of paper or 2 sheets of paper, because you will need 2 maps. And then you should have something that looks like so. Okay, so then you need to get your tea bag and swirl around. My tea bag's been wet quite a while, so I think it's leaking. It's gone a bit too soft. And just cover your piece of paper like that. Both sides would be good. If you decide to leave, because the messier you can make the section in the middle, you might want to do one side and then the other. That's entirely up to you. And you do that both sides of the paper. It should look something like this. Okay, but you need that to be properly dry. I've got 2 of them ready, so you do need 2 of these dry. Those pieces of paper later for the lesson. So for now, we will start our learning. Okay, so Monday the 22nd of February 2021, and we are in our topic lesson. And our topic lesson today is going to be more geography based, and it is titled Darwin's Voyage of Discovery. I think I've got tea over my laptop there. So, learning. We're going to be learning about Darwin's voyage on HMS Beagle. That was a boat that took him around the South America. Our focus is to develop your contextual knowledge of the location of globally significant places. That means you have to be able to identify where Darwin travelled and be able to find that area of the world on a map. And it's a globally significant place, the Galapagos Islands, because of how it helped Darwin's theories and understanding of adaptation and evolution. Our purpose is to develop your understanding of the wider world, so you've got a knowledge of the world rather than just the place, the country that we live in. And your assessment, you will draw an accurate map of Darwin's voyage and around the world and the Galapagos Islands. So, our previous learning. In our previous lessons, we learned that Charles Darwin became the naturalist on HMS Beagle. And the naturalist is someone who looks out for new plant and life species and explores them and collects samples, makes drawings and records his findings either through illustrations, because don't forget they didn't have cameras at that time, so he wouldn't just be able to click a photograph, and so he would draw them. So, which was a ship sent to survey the seas and coastlines of South America in order to create accurate, detailed maps and charts of the area for British sailors to use in peacetime and in war. There were always lots of wars going on around this time, just between countries. And so it was essential that the soldiers, sailors, the Navy had detailed maps of the area so they knew where would be safe for them to travel. We also learned that the voyage took 5 years to complete. In today's lesson, we're going to look at the route of the voyage in more detail. So the voyage. This map shows the route HMS Beagle took on Darwin's voyage. It went from England to South America, to the Galapagos Islands, to Australia, South Africa, and back to England. So we started off here, and he travelled to South America, then onwards to the Galapagos Islands, and then back round to South Africa, and they went to New Zealand, Australia, and eventually all the way back to England. Now, sailing in those days did take a long time, so it did take 5 years to cover that. It wouldn't take so long to cover it nowadays, but here was the main area, South America. So the British Isles are here, and over here is South America. North America up here, but South America and around this area, the Pacific Ocean and Africa. So let's take a more detailed look at the voyage. So if you are following the slides, you will need to click on this link. I'll just turn my pointer off. Click on this link here. So just click on HMS Beagle's voyage, and hopefully it will take us to where we need to go. It may take a little while for it to load. Worked in it's doing something. I think my internet just might be working a little bit slower than I would like it to. There we go. So if you follow the link on the slides, it will bring you to this map. And the interesting thing about this map is it numbers all of the stops, and you can find out more about the voyage. And this is what I want you to do. Most of this lesson is probably going to be taken up with you learning about the route of the voyage. So the voyage started, so if I click on number 1, this picture here, it tells me number 1 is where they started their journey in Devonport, England, on the 27th of December 1831. And over here, and you can make this larger if you want, you can get a picture of the ship and the sailing out of port. Click on that back and it takes you back to the map. Now here, there is a sidebar that will give you more information, okay? So, and these are quotes from Charles Darwin himself. that tells you about his journey. So on the 27th of December 1831, he wrote, Her Majesty's ship Beagle, a 10-gun brig under the command of Captain Fitzroy, R.N., sailed from Devonport on the 27th of December 1831 to complete the survey of Patagonia and Terra del Fuego. And then it tells you who the picture behind is, and you can take that and it will tell you their next part, and you can look at where it is in the world. Okay, so they've sailed from the UK off to the Canary Islands, which are islands belonging to Spain. So on the 6th of January, we reached Tenerife, but were prevented landing by fears of our bringing the cholera. That was a disease that was prevalent and very dangerous in that period of time. The next morning, we saw the sun rise behind the rugged outline of the Grand Canary Island and suddenly illuminate the peak of Tenerife, whilst the lower parts were veiled in fleecy clouds. So you can have a look at Tenerife. If you click on this image, and that's what Tenerife looks like, the Canary Islands by Barron. And what you have to remember is Darwin would have been seeing these places for the first time in his life, so it would have been a very exciting voyage for him as well. And to see the sun and to see the effect it had on the landscape would be quite a marvel for him. So then you can either click on number 3, and it will show you where he went to Cape Verde Islands in January 1832. So you get an idea of how long it takes to travel from one place to another. And again, in this area on the sidebar, you can read what Darwin wrote about the Cape Verde Islands. And this, I'm not going to go through all of these slides with you because I think this has to be your learning. So you can go through the whole of his journey right up until he comes back home to Falmouth. And here at the top, it will tell you all about his return home, what he felt about his journey. And then on slide 38, it tells you about what happened after his return home. So you need to work through all of those slides, and you don't have to click on the bottom like I did. You can just click through these slides and it will take you back. So if you go along here, you won't need to do this because you won't have clicked through all of the slides. And we'll go to number 4, and then it will tell you about number 4 here. So this is the whole of his journey. So, and if you click the home button, you will see the map in more detail, and then you can reduce it down so that you can see the whole of the journey. But it's important from this lesson that you are able to understand where South America is, where Australia is, and where Africa is, so that you can locate those places, significant places on his journey, globally important places, taking us back to our learning on this map. So I'll go back to sharing my slides with you. So that will probably take quite a long time. So then we'll take our learning more closely to the Galapagos Islands, because this is where Darwin started to really investigate and explore the ideas. So I have included some more information about the Galapagos Islands. So the Galapagos Islands are a cluster of scattered islands almost 1,000 kilometers off the Pacific coast. So this is the Pacific Ocean, the Pacific Ocean being the largest ocean in the world. And they belong to Ecuador. Now, Ecuador is a country in South America. So this little group of islands belongs to this country here. In earlier times, they were thought to be lying at the other end of the world as they looked so lonely and far removed from any other land. They are the most unique set of islands. Okay, so people thought that these islands were at the end of the world because they were so distant and so maybe unapproachable for some people. So where in the world? So if we look at a map of the world, we can see, and I'm hoping from your learning already, you can identify Brazil, South America here, and Brazil being the largest country in South America. Okay, so South America here, and just if we look at that map closely, this is the outline of South America. And you can see that Chile, Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay, Bolivia, Venezuela, Suriname, Guyana, French Guiana, Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru make up South America, with some islands further off. So here are the Galapagos Islands in relation to Ecuador. And although Ecuador looked quite large when we looked up close, you can see that in the context of South America, it's quite a small country. And just off here are the Galapagos Islands. So that's what South America looks like. Those are the countries that make up South America. The islands almost look as if no life could exist there, but nothing can be farther from the truth. There are thousands of animals that live on these islands, and many are found here and nowhere else in the world. After all, where else could you find a tortoise as big as a bathtub, giant lizards that look like dragons, and fishes with 4 eyes and glass rocks? So there are lots of marvels of life on the Galapagos Islands that you won't find anywhere else in the world. And that's what Darwin found. The Galapagos Islands were a place where Darwin discovered plants and animals never seen before. It was whilst he was here that his theories about evolution and adaptation began to take root, as he explored and experienced the nature on the islands. So not only the animals, but the plants as well. And even though the beagle toured all round the Galapagos Islands, it wasn't always able to dock. So a smaller boat would take Darwin out to the islands, and he would spend some time out on the islands himself. So the Galapagos Islands, the Beagle reached the Galapagos Islands on the 15th of September 1835, nearly 4 years after setting off from Plymouth, England. The visit to the Galapagos would prove the starting point from which Darwin would develop his theories on evolution and secure his enduring fame. Like many visitors to the islands before him, Darwin considered them bleak and ugly. He had 34 days on the islands to collect species and record observations around the islands. So each island has a name. So here we have the island of Fernandina, so this small island here. The larger of the islands are called Isabella. And then we've got Florina, Española, San Cristobal, tiny island of Santa Fe, Santa Cruz, Pinzon, San Salvador, Genovesa, Marchena, and Pinta. So the largest island here is Isabella. So these are the islands that make up the Galapagos Islands. Although he was employed as a geologist, Darwin had also been an avid collector of fossils, animals, and plants during his voyage and took extensive notes on all he observed. So, extensive notes are lots and lots of notes. He described the natural history of Galapagos as very remarkable. It seems to be a little world within itself, the greater number of its inhabitants, both vegetable and animal, being found nowhere else. That's a quote from Darwin's diaries. And he's saying that the islands are a little world of their own because of the species that he found there, and finding plants and animals that were seen nowhere else in the world. So he travelled around the Galapagos Islands for 5 weeks, visiting San Cristobal, so this island here, from the 17th to the 22nd of September. And then he moved on to Florina from the 24th to the 27th of September. And there are days in between because they would have had to sail from this island to this island. And though it doesn't seem very far, it is 2 days travelling on a boat at that time. And then they went from Florina to Isabella, the largest of the islands, and he spent from the 29th of September to the 2nd of October on on Isabella. And then from the 8th of October to the 17th of October, he stayed in Santiago. So that was his visit to the islands and how long he spent there. For your independent task, you are going to draw a map like the one on this image and then plot HMS Beagle's journey. Now, I'm quite aware that you're going to have, it's not going to be so easy being an home learner drawing these maps at home, but you're going to need your map that you created earlier. And then you're going to study your map of the world, and then it's not going to, I've only got whiteboard pens and I've got this on here. I would suggest you do this in pencil, and you start off very lightly, and you start on your map and you start to look at how to draw North America. And as I say, as home learners, these aren't going to be quite as accurate as they might have been were we at school. As long as you get the basic shape of the country, and so then you will put the detail on. You will have more time to do this, of course. Hopefully you can see this. And here, I'm now going to start in South America. And as I say, it's not going to be entirely accurate. And of course, you will need to label your country. It will be easy for you because you will have and on here, you will need to make sure that you label Ecuador and then you draw your islands. Excuse me. So you will continue until you have drawn the whole of the world. And on the next slide, there is a full page map so that you can have a closer look. And as I say, I know this isn't going to be that easy at home, but so long as you take your time and care, like I said in the instructions, this could take a couple of days, a couple of lessons. So please don't feel that you need to rush this. Can you please make sure that you have these labels and you mark north on your map? If you're feeling particularly creative, you can try and sketch HMS Beagle, but the idea is that your map looks aged so that it looks like it comes from the 1800s when Darwin was travelling. And then task 2 is to create a map of the Galapagos Islands like the one in the image, identifying the islands that Darwin visited. You must mark the compass points, and this is where your second map will come into use. Okay, so we've got our second map. I'm going to label it the Galapagos Islands. And then, like your previous map, you're going to draw just a map of the islands. Take your time and just make sure that you manage to fit all of your icons on your map. This one looks, I think, a bit like is it like that? And then, hey, please make sure that you mark north on your map, and that on this one you draw the part at the top, which labels Darwin. Oh. And again, on the next page is a map of a close-up map of the Galapagos Islands. You don't need to worry about the scale around the edge, but if you can make sure that your map looks like this. I've put some other maps on to give you some inspiration. This map is made up of the animals that you will find on there, a little more intricate, but still there. And there's another one here. So depending on how, and this one has got creatures, animals that you would find on these particular islands. So you'll find your giant tortoises on the island of San Cristobal. You'll find your dragons on the island of Santa Maria, seals on Isabella, and your different types of birds here and here. So that is your task for probably our next two topic lessons, and possibly your Wellbeing Wednesday to catch up. I look forward to seeing your work, and I hope you can create some very interesting maps for me. And I hope you enjoy this task. Don't forget to please share your work with us and make it the best quality that you possibly can, because in a few weeks hopefully you'll be back in school, and if you've done this work there's no reason why it can't go in your topic books. So have a good lesson, and remember, please don't rush this work, and I will see you soon.